Welcome to Introspectively Speaking, the podcast where I invite you into my stream of consciousness. You'll get to listen in on real conversations as they unfold between me and my friends, and sometimes the conversations I have with myself. We'll explore universal topics, life lessons learned, and reflect on the truths we often keep to ourselves. There's a little something for everyone to relate to in this podcast. With the right balance of levity and depth, I can promise you one thing. You will always leave with at least one thing to think about. With that, I'm your host, Amber Lynette, and now it's time to go on some trails. Welcome back, everybody, to Introspectively Speaking. I am Amber Lynette, and yes, this is the first time I'm putting out an episode where, in addition to being able to hear me, you can now see me. So listeners, welcome back, and hello watchers, if you're watching this for the first time. I'm so happy to have you here. And I just want to start off today by giving a sincere thank you to you if you've been a day one listener, if you're a new listener, if you are a personal friend that listens, or you're somebody who doesn't know me at all and listens to all the thoughts and things that I have to share on this platform. So I can recall sometime within the last year, I definitely recorded a solo episode where I had a mini tantrum and, was very upset that I couldn't figure out this recording platform that is Riverside that I'm using today successfully. Turns out that it was an internet connectivity issue. So now that I'm in my new apartment and I have new internet, I'm not having a problem with it. So, I take back what I said, and here I am today coming to you live from Amber Studios to bring you a visual podcast recording experience. I think the visual podcast is interesting because, the reason I like podcasts so much personally, I realize, is because I have a lot of time where I am not necessarily able to watch things, but I am able to listen to them. That's usually because I'm traveling for work. I'm often in very long car rides when I go see my grandma. So I have a lot of airtime, if you will, to spare. So watching has been a new phenomenon, at least to me. And so whereas we're kind of going from everybody being able to have their own indie radio show, in a sense, we're now going in the direction of everybody having their own indie, daytime talk show. So I find that very interesting. And I'm excited to play around with this platform. And I figured today I would really use it as an opportunity to set the tone, share my intentions with you, and sort of cast the vision for introspectively speaking. Because if there's one thing that is for sure, is that it has gone through an evolution, as do most things in a creative process. You have an idea, you put it into action, and over time you get new ideas, and it changes and it changes and it changes. So my podcast has gone from a cathartic, pre-written storytelling experience to now recorded episodes of me having real conversations with my friends, and also episodes like this where I just get to, catch up with you as if you are here with me right now, having your beverage of choice. Mine today is water. Go me, drinking water in 2025. The truth is, when I started this podcast, I didn't have a plan. I kind of just got started. And so now we're 16 episodes deep, and I'm just really looking forward to what this year has in store. We'll take a quick moment to, if you're watching, for me to introduce my baby Shih Tzu, Petunia, who's currently licking herself. But she's always going to be joining in on these conversations. So speaking about joining the conversation, that is the very first intention that I want to set for this season of Introspectively Speaking, and that is that I want you to feel like you are here with me in my living room, a part of the conversation. I want you to feel like you're hearing things that you can relate to. I want you to see yourself in some of these stories. I want you to agree. I want you to disagree. I overall just want you to feel a part of the conversation. And that is the very first intention that I have for this season of Introspectively Speaking. So even though I'm not a big New Year's resolution person, I really do think that if you want to start something or do something, it definitely doesn't take a new year to do it. I'm the person that believes in starting at any time if there's something that you want to do, right? Case in point, this podcast. I knew I wanted to do it. I didn't wait for a new year. I had started it whenever I felt like I wanted to, and I just started it. And that has served me well. However, I also believe in keeping the spirit alive of things. So for example, Christmas. Christmas doesn't feel like Christmas unless you are in the spirit, right? And giving off of that spirit energy. And I am giving off that 2025 year, not necessarily a new me energy, because I'm definitely the same person, but I am keeping the spirit alive by keeping this conversation going and really going full force with inviting people into the conversation. So I am excited for what I have in store for you, listener or watcher. I'm going to have conversations with friends, and we're going to talk about things like platonic romance. That was something new that I hadn't really heard of, but makes so much sense. Leadership and some of the struggles that come with being a young leader. We're also going to talk about embracing the cringe, especially in the creative process. There is a certain level of cringe that you need to be able to embrace in order to go through that process fully. And also, we're going to talk this season about what it's like to rebrand yourself. I think we all have those moments, or those friend groups at least, where somebody knew you one way and years have passed and now you're a completely different person, you know? And so we're going to have conversations that I feel like, at least in the millennial realm, you will be able to relate to. But of course, you know, you can't really look ahead to the new year without looking back on the previous year. So I did want to take a moment today to reflect on what 2024 was like for me, but specifically two to three lessons that I learned in 2024. I think one of the first things that I learned is that age is truly nothing but a number. Not like the Aaliyah song, because when I was thinking about this today, I looked up the lyrics to the Aaliyah song, and she's definitely talking about something different. She's talking about relations with somebody else, and that age is nothing but a number. And you know what? That could be true, depending on like what that age gap is. But that's neither here nor there. That's not what we're talking about today. When I say that age is nothing but a number, I think I learned that I had maybe this expectation or thought that the same way that age is linear, and linear in the sense that we get older, 1 year older every single year. Every single day we get a little bit older, right? And that is sort of an upward trajectory. Maturity is not linear, right? So just because you get older doesn't mean that you're going to be more mature, doesn't mean that you're going to be more wise. While that is the case for some, it is not the case for all. Age is nothing but a number. I have met people who are young and very mature, if you will, and people who are older and not at all. I think my dad is a great example of that. 63 years old, was never able to like overcome his demons. And so that leads me to my next point, and that is that it is so possible to make friends in adulthood. This past year was the year where I started to rebuild my friend group. Because my core group of best friends do not live here, I found myself in a place where I didn't really have people within my community that I could call upon, hang out with, and just, like shoot the shit with. I didn't have that anymore. And so this year, I I did that. I was able to find those groups of people, and I'm feeling really good about that. And so when I say that it is possible to make friends in adulthood, I wanted to bring it up because I know there is a big train of thought out there that it is difficult to do. And I'm not saying that it is super easy, but something that I have realized is that you really do have more people who are willing to be your friend than you think. And so I felt very validated the other day when I listened to, it was Jay Shetty and Mel Robbins. It was his podcast, and I guess she was going on there to explain her let them theory, which I freaking love, thought it was amazing, highly recommend that you take a moment to listen to what the let them theory is all about. But in that, she also touches upon how to build, adult friendships. And it was something that she said that I was like, damn, she is so right, because that is exactly what I have done. And so what I have done this year is really reconnected with people who were already in my life, but people that I had drifted from, people that maybe I had thought, I never knew that we could have a friendship the way that we have it today. And that has been a really, really fun experience. So sometimes it's just a matter of looking back in your past and taking that step and reaching out. And what I can say also is that it kind of gets easier. It's almost like friendship dating. And, on that age is nothing but a number topic, kind of tying these two things in, you can tell, right, in adulthood, the person or people that you will want to continue to friend date and the people that you won't. And I think that is pretty phenomenal, actually. It's a skill. You're going to meet people who you're going to talk to, and you're going to be like, yeah, like this person is my wavelength. And you're gonna maybe reconnect with other people that you're like, all right, that was cool, but really that person is not on my wavelength. So I've been very fortunate to find those that are on my wavelength, and this upcoming year, now I'm really excited to create more community around that. I think the last thing that I've learned, like really learned this past year in 2024, was that living in a space that you love is so important. And I don't mean, that we always get to choose the neighborhood that we live in, the caliber of place that we live in. What I mean is that making the place that you live in, making the most out of it, and really, really filling it with things that you love. I have had a great time making my new apartment my own, and that has been filling it with plants, with vintage furniture type things, with printing out my own photographs, nature photographs that I've taken from trips that I've been on, and using that as art on my wall. Keeping it clean, when I want to keep it clean. It's just, there's nothing like living in a space that you love living in. And it makes all the difference, in my opinion, of like overall life satisfaction. So that I wanted to share, because if you find yourself in a place where you're maybe not feeling happy, take a look at the space around you and really evaluate, like, is this what I want around me? And now it's time for some life updates. So I got a puppy. And if you're watching, you can see she's not being moo dang right now, which is great. So Petunia is a Shih Tzu. I grew up with Shih Tzus. And so, yeah, my whole life, one Shih Tzu after another. There was a point in time in my life, when both my parents were still around, where we had three to four Shih Tzus in the house, all different ages. And I don't know, we just had like a Shih Tzu farm, I guess, for some reason. We liked them that much. And eventually when I got older and moved out on my own, and I had Chewy. Chewy was my last Shih Tzu that I had, and he lived to be 15 years old, and he was just, my heart and my soul. But anyways, I was at a place where I wanted another dog, and I wanted a Shih Tzu. And I wanted a little one, and the requirement was that they could not have googly eyes. So I did not want one of those Shih Tzus that the eyes were looking in opposite directions. She needed to have perfect set eyes. So true story, I was on a trip. With some friends of mine, and I'm boarding the plane to come back home. And I just had an impulse, because there are moments where I am impulsive like that. And I was like, I just like, let's see what's out there. So I looked up Shih Tzu breeders in Florida. I saw that one of them had a batch of puppies that were ready to go. Petunia was one of them. Her name was Eden before I got her. And I was messaging with the breeder back and forth. I had maybe about 10 minutes before the plane was gonna take off and I was gonna lose service. And I put a deposit down on her. I just did it. I put a deposit down on her and I went to go pick her up one day to go, on the way to go see my grandma. And, we've been like peas in a pod ever since. One thing that I did that was contrary to what most people will tell you to do when you have a puppy is the way that I sleep trained her. If there's one thing about me is that I need to sleep. All of us, to be fair, need to sleep. I am just not a good human if I don't get enough sleep. And I have a tendency to get very grumpy. So I'm grumpy if I can't sleep, and I'm grumpy if I don't have my coffee like as soon as I wake up in the morning. This cute, fun, nice Amber does not exist if those things do not exist. So the first night I got her, I was prepared with a playpen. I bought her a playpen. And put her in the playpen, ready to go to bed. I'm feeling hopeful. And poor baby just did not stop crying. And it's just like a cry that, this has helped to further reinforce the fact that I am childless by choice. Not because I don't love kids. I do. I just don't, I don't think that I am that responsible of a person. That's a lot of pressure. And just hearing her cry, freaked me the fuck out. So I let her sleep in the bed with me. And it has been like that every single night. She has never peed in the bed. She sleeps all night long, even when she was only 3 months, and she's 6 months now. Never had an accident. And it's just the sweetest, most delicious thing ever to sleep with a little Shih Tzu and find her behind your pillow or, cuddled up with you. I don't regret it one single bit. So puppy life for me has actually been really, really good. She has multiple personalities. When she's being crazy, I call her Moo Dang. I fucking love Moo Dang. Shout out Moo Dang. I'm such a nerd. I know. Granny is doing relatively well. I've shared so much about my experience with my grandma here on the podcast. And I will continue to do that because she's just a very real part of my life. And so the holidays looked a little different this year. I went up to see her for Thanksgiving, and that was nice. It was my sister, her husband, the dogs, and my grandma. And so she's not really eating too much. So it was perfect. We just made from scratch our own green bean casserole, mashed potatoes, and everything else we bought. We went to Whole Foods and we bought small portions. It was perfect. And then for Christmas, we actually had a KFC Christmas. Because my grandma's not eating too much, it didn't make sense for us to go all out and buy, Christmas dishes and do a whole shebang. As long as I had a good bottle of wine and some KFC chicken, which she loves, it was going to be perfect. So we got a big bucket of chicken, a nice bottle of wine, and that's how we spent Christmas with my grandma. So yeah, holidays looked a little bit different this year, but still got to spend some quality time with her. And at this point in time, she's spending most of her days sleeping. So we'll see what happens. I'm just, I have nothing else really to say about it except for I am so thankful for all the time that she has been on this earth, and continue to be thankful for every day that she is here. Last couple updates on what is going on in my life. I'm bringing hobbies back. Okay, so I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine about how when you're choosing your passwords, on some website, and you have your security questions, how we always skip over the ones that say, what is your hobby? Because who has hobbies anymore? And if you do, that is so awesome. But I personally have not really had a hobby. I guess podcasting is a hobby of mine, so check. That one is checked off. Now, other hobbies though, I think I'm gonna get in. I think I'm getting into gardening. I have, well, not obviously, you only see 2 of them here, but my whole house is full of plants. Okay, and I do very good with the indoor plants. The outdoor plants, not so much. I had never repotted my first plant up until a couple days ago. But when I did it, I was like, this is really nice. There was something about the dirt and working with hands and I guess that connection with nature in that way that I found really, really enjoyable and calming. And I'm not the only person to say that. I know there's plenty of people out there who do gardening and they say the same thing. So I concur. It was very nice. Lisette says that I have plant Munchausen disease because it's true, I will let some plants I'll neglect them for too long. And right before it's too late, I come in for the win and I rehabilitate them. So, I don't know, maybe it's like a weird plant god complex that I have, but I do think I want to get more into gardening. Like, cool, can I like grow my own food? That would be really, really cool. Okay, so now let's play a game. I think that, especially if you've been listening, you know already a lot about me. I do use this platform and I sort of like overshare. It's a thing though, it's like a niche. Oversharing is a niche. Vulnerability and oversharing is a niche, and you know what? Fuck it, I fit into the niche. So I have definitely overshared. But I thought, what a cool way to continue to get to know me by playing this game called Where Should We Begin? Okay, and so this game was created by Esther Perel. And so let me read to you how she describes it. So, created by therapist, podcast host, and author Esther Perel, Where Should We Begin? A game of stories is designed to unlock the storyteller within. Just as an amazing connection is about sharing, listening, risk, laughter, and discovery, so too is a great game. Roll the dice and pull a card to inspire the stories you rarely tell. This is where the adventure begins. So this is like totally up my alley. This game, I had purchased it a while back, and it really does work to help deepen your connection. Maybe it's with your person or with friends, even yourself. If you really want to learn how to become a better storyteller, I would even say that this game helps with that as well. So I figured that I will play the game with you. I will pull, let's say maybe 5 cards randomly. Let's see hopefully I don't get any sexy questions, because there are sexy questions in this, but we're not going to go over that today or ever probably. And yeah, that way you can get to know me in a different light according to whatever questions Esther Perel asks. So let's go ahead and get started with Where Should We Begin? Let me get comfortable. I feel like I want to get comfortable for this. So this is, again, Where Should We Begin? A game of stories by Esther Perel. Let's see, the first question. I'm proud I stood up for myself when? Okay, I think I'm proud I stand up for myself when, even though later when I do the replay of my day, I might be like, maybe that was a little rough. But so professionally, I do a lot of public speaking in front of small groups of people, large groups of people. And often what I am speaking about are things that people might think is fluffy. You know, a lot of inspirational type things in the healthcare realm. But there are people in healthcare who shouldn't be in healthcare. And, you know, you would think because it's health care, you would have people who are compassionate. But the reality is that there are many who are not. They are jaded, they have compassion fatigue, and, you know, ultimately not somebody that I would want caring for a family member. So when I stand up in front of groups of people, not often, but every once in a while, you will get somebody who will say, it's almost like a heckler in a crowd. And when that happens, I've just learned to turn on the nasty nice. Nasty nice is what I call, it's a response to heckling, where you are not blatantly rude or mean back to somebody, but you're saying something that's gonna like, you know, and you just kind of move on with the conversation. So I'm proud when I nasty nice, but then later I feel bad for nasty nicing, because it's just not like, don't take me there. I don't fucking like to be that person. You kind of have to do that when you're publicly being vulnerable and sharing personal stories about yourself. So you know what? Fuck the haters. All right. My relationship to money changed when? Well, this is very aligned with what I have talked about before. I have a whole episode on getting financially naked. If you haven't listened to it, I welcome you to listen to it. But yeah, my relationship has changed many, many times. I think that's how it is for a lot of us, is that it continuously evolves over time. But I would say some of the big points for me were definitely like any time that I've been in a situation where I'm like independently living, which has been most of my life. Now that I say it, that always makes you kind of stop and think like, oh, okay, I need to reevaluate like what I'm spending on and can I spend on these things? Also, when I inherited money, like I'm not a trust fund baby. I don't have like a bazillion dollars. But yeah, when my grandma's passed, I inherited a sum of money and I was deathly afraid to lose it. I talk all about this in my financial naked episode. So again, you're welcome to go there and hear more about it. But that's been a key time where I was like, okay, I have this money and I don't want to lose it. So how do I manage this appropriately? And now I'm at a point where I've even dabbled with investing, high yield savings type things. And I am grateful that I can support myself. And that's it. That's where my relationship is now, at the very least. All right, let's see the next one. I'm most competitive when I can remember when I first started working as a consultant and I was a part of a team a long time ago. I had a team member, she's still a friend of mine, maybe she'll listen to this, who called me one day after like one of our first days of work, and she had maybe sensed that there was some competitive nature within me. And she made it very clear in such a nice and kind and clear way, that her goal was really to work as a team. And she didn't want to be competitive. And so I found that fascinating because one, so cool that somebody felt comfortable to come and essentially nudge me and say, hey, just so you know, we're on the same team. And also too, I was like, damn, maybe I'm giving off like competitive vibes. I was at a time in my professional career where I was ready to grow. And so often when we find ourselves in our career life in a position where we're ready to grow, we can come off as competitive because we're really a lot of the time being competitive with ourselves. But it's important to know our impact on others, especially when you're a part of a team. So I thought that was really great. Just a story that I thought about with this competitive thing. So professionally, I've maybe come across as competitive at times, but that has completely evolved for me. I was in a leadership role for some time and there's no competition really in leadership. It's truly about getting a team all together towards the same direction and inspiring those people to be their best. I'm actually going to have an episode with my friend Megan, which I've mentioned like 10,000 times on this podcast, and we talk a little bit about that. But on another note, on a vulnerable note, I'm probably competitive when I'm insecure about something, So I think in that sense, insecurity, though it has a negative connotation, I actually think that insecurity is good, if it's measured. If you let your insecurities run wild and you're just a dick to people because you're insecure, that's not okay. But if you are insecure about something, okay, and it motivates you to get better at something, then why is that bad? That's not bad. Okay, let's see. A risk I took that changed my life. This one is easy. And maybe one day I will get into this. It's a story that I have yet to tell to, at least on this platform, to the public. And that is how I left my middle school and high school sweetheart. I decided to leave that relationship when I came out as gay. Yeah, which I didn't really come out. It just sort of happened. But it was a risk that absolutely changed my life. All of that being said, I love that person so much who was in my life, but it was the right thing to do for both of us. I don't regret that risk that I took because even though I've had many hard times after I took that risk, I feel true to myself. It definitely showed me what I'm made of. That's for sure. It takes courage to leave a situation that's not true to you anymore. And I think that's all I'm going to share about that. And yeah, why not take a crazy chance? If you're a millennial and you listen to like Hillary Duff, you would probably know that song. Well, I think on that cliffhanger, I'm going to bring today's episode to a close. I want to say thank you so very much for tuning in. If it's your first time or if you're a repeat listener, I am so happy to have you here. And again, the goal is really to have you a part of the conversation. It should feel like we're having coffee or cocktails together. Your choice. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and this little catch up. If there's any topic you would like me to talk about, any questions that you have that you want me to respond to, you can go ahead and shoot those my way. My Instagram is Amber__Lynette. I've decided to get rid of my podcast Instagram, which I know is like counterproductive probably to a successful podcast. But the truth is, I am the podcast. The podcast is me. We are one and the same. And you know what? It is just easier to manage that way. So all of that being said, sending you a big hug. Looking forward to hearing your response in the poll today. Please do engage with that. And of course, don't forget to rate and review and subscribe. Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Sending you a big hug. Thanks for tuning in to Introspectively Speaking. I hope something in today's conversation sparked something within you. Take a moment to reflect on what resonated, and if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to rate and review. Your feedback helps keep the conversation going. Until next time, sending you a big hug.